God of the universe, maker of the stars, who am I that you would know my name?
Well, somewhat live. I am back from Israel after quite a little encounter with a number of modes of transportation on the way back. Here we are, Franklin, North Carolina, once again, and joined by the amazing gentleman that I have with me of Dave Covert, Ryan Cribbs, and of course, Daniel Clayton.
The one, the only, right?
The one, the only.
Yeah, I think live might be a bit of an exaggeration for you.
Yeah,
Give me
yeah,
five.
just I mean,
Give me 5 minutes, you'll be all right.
yeah, I got up last week to do the program, and this week is like, I should be in bed right now because it's somewhere in the vicinity of 1:30 or so in my head, and I haven't had a lot of sleep in a couple days. So punchy, yeah, you
Yes.
got it, man.
Yeah, jet lag coming back. It's brutal. Oh man, it's brutal.
I don't know why it's
Yeah.
different, David. I mean, you've flown that thing.
Yes.
You going, it's like, okay, I'm here, hit the ground going. On the way back, it's like, I am fading out fast.
I think you actually said it before we have the conversation about Israel. When you come back, it's the exile blues. It's
There you go.
on top of everything, the jet lag and that it just compounds on top of you. How you're like,
That's
I
true.
wish I was back. Oh, I wish I was back there. Yeah.
I'm kind of seeing Ryan doing this new, a new song. Like I'm living the exile blues.
I knew that was coming. As soon as I heard the title, I was like, somebody's going to expect me or Daniel or somebody to write this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The exile.
I'll leave that one
blues.
for you. Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
you
There's
got
not
that.
enough bluesy rock stuff anymore.
Ryan, I got a question for you. What's taking you so long?
Well,
Maybe-
after the meeting, he's got that designated time for when he's going to write that blues song. He
That's
talks
right.
Yeah.
As we've talked about, yeah, exactly. From 2 to 3 o'clock is
Yeah.
song right now. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I'll message your assistant to make sure that it's blocked off there.
Exactly. Yeah, let my secretary know.
Yeah.
So
It's true though. I mean, like, going over there, or just, for really any trip, you got the excitement, you got the stuff going for you, but coming back, it's just kind of it's a whole wind down of everything, like you said, Dave, just on top of everything else.
Yes. I think that I even noticed that it was that. And then whenever we go out on tour as a band, and Mike, you've joined us a couple of times. I think Daniel, you were with us a couple of times too. Coming back from that winding down, always, I did not expect it. No one warned me. No, it didn't come in the manual. When you're a band, you come back. Yeah, it's like depression coming back. It's
So
brutal.
here's this is not where we were gonna go at all, but Dad, here's a question for you. So this applies to going to Israel. It applies to these tours. It applies to conferences, to camps, to Sukkots, anything like that. Dad, you've been around the block a few times. You've been to Israel over 30 times. Can you tell people what is the danger for you right now after having come back from a trip from Israel? Or what is the danger for someone having come back from something exciting or spiritually impactful?
it's a good
I
question.
think, yeah, it's an interesting thing because I think, when you're tired, you're vulnerable to begin with.
Mhm.
But when you put that together with a spiritual high, and I mean, Israel, as is a spiritual high. You're there right in the midst of the battle. This time I actually I have a CD coming out in a couple days, or MP3 for those that are, CD. I know that sounds ancient, but we've got an MP3 coming out. And I did, when I was there in the land, I did interviews with everybody, or a lot of people that were on the tour. And so they were telling about the great experiences and everything. And then on the way back, we're actually driving up the Georgia highway, and me and my wife, Kathy, are doing a little bit of a, recording. I wasn't texting and driving. Okay. But I was recording and driving. So we're doing this recording, and we're talking about the dichotomy that Israel was when I was there. like on the Temple Mount. I didn't really realize it until later because, we were right on the edge within 5 minutes of a terrorist attack. But
Mhm.
when we went up there, David, you've been there. Normally you have these Arab women that are chattering at you. They're kind of yelling and mocking and harassing you. It was quiet. Normally you got kids playing soccer. It was quiet. It was too
Wow.
quiet. And now that I think back about it, I understand it was too quiet.
That
They
eeriness,
knew.
right?
They knew something was going to happen.
Yeah.
And so people not talking to each other about it, when we got off the Temple Mount, many of the people said, I felt as if the ground was vibrating underneath my feet.
Mhm.
It was like energized. But at the same time,
Mhm.
there was this cloud of oppression on us at the same. These were two spiritual extremes happening at the same time.
Yeah.
You've been
Wow.
in that spiritual warfare, involved in whatever level. You come
Mhm.
back out of that kind of into a neutral, and I find myself, you can be kind of edgy. You can patience levels, all these things. You're a little vulnerable at times.
Mm.
It's just something to kind of watch out for in life. That
Mhm.
and Elijah did this. Okay, Elijah comes
Mhm.
out of the Mount Carmel, having called down fire from the heavens, and the next thing you
Mhm.
know, he's sitting in a cave going, "Woe is me! I'm the only one."
Yeah. And I
Oh, yeah.
think, that the tiredness is a big one. And also, just being in Israel, it represents its own victory in one way. And I think Sukkots and camps, conferences, we typically find some kind of victory for ourselves, whether it be just a freedom from something that has been bothering you,
Mhm.
or just kind of a new insight into your own life that helps you move forward. And there's a victory aspect to it. And you're always the most vulnerable as well after a victory or after coming off from that high because of the victory aspect.
Yeah.
And you can look at this in the life of Yeshua, where, when did the devil come to tempt him? It was right after the scene of the Holy Spirit coming down and resting on
Mhm.
Yeshua and saying, "This is my son, who I'm well pleased with."
Yeah.
It was right after that public acknowledgement from the Father to the Son. That is when the devil attacked and tempted him in the wilderness. Was after that victory.
Mhm. I was going to point out too what you were talking about, that whole idea being it's not in the land exactly per se, but I know when me and Ryan we've gone on tour we've gone, and it's like this building anticipation. We know something's about to happen,
Mhm.
but when you're glued in like that, you're locked in. You know what you got to do. You know your role. You know your job. You know what you got to do, and all of a sudden these things, emotions, thoughts just start pummeling you, and you're
Yeah.
like, what the heck is going on?
Mhm.
And that it's almost, I think there's some people have gone with us and they find it a little bit scary, because you're just like, this is everything's great, everything's good,
Mhm.
but you get like attacked. So like what you're talking about when you guys were on the Temple Mount, that eeriness,
Mhm.
that you can experience that when you're walking in the will of God. And right at that moment is right where you got to really clue in. You really got to lock in and go, okay, there's something else happening here. Ignore what I'm feeling. Focus on what you want me to do, Father. What am I supposed to be doing? Because you might miss an opportunity because all that distraction, the noise will just,
Mhm.
that opportunity that goes right past you. And then you have the opportunity to reach out to
Mhm.
somebody, because I think we could have hours of long discussions with all of us talking about where we've gone somewhere
Yeah.
when we didn't feel like it, and God just brought up somebody, and it was like, wow, how did that happen? When was
Mhm.
what? I was not ready for this. I was clearly not ready for this. So I think that I think we've all experienced that, and
Mhm.
it's strange. I think that's the best way
Ryan,
of saying strange.
Ryan, you've been around this thing of being on a platform, in the public eye like that, and I've watched you in this place of anointing. Um, do you have things that you go through kind of afterwards to or thought processes or whatever, just to kind of put those guards up, or what's going on with you when you step out of that?
Mhm.
That's an interesting question. For me, I've long told Dave this. I wish I want to find like a cool hat, right? And maybe some cool glasses to wear so that when I get off stage, I can take the hat and the glasses off and like throw on a different shirt and then just kind of blend and nobody actually know, who I am
Yeah.
or where I've gone.
Mhm.
That it actually kind of worked out perfectly this last Sukkot. We played the second night and something occurred. I had to step away for a minute.
Hmm.
I think I grabbed a jacket or something, and I literally walked up on a conversation of people going, Where'd the piano player go?" And I was standing like right beside him, and I loved that. Part of that is, I guess, for me, kind of stepping away and reconnecting with the Father.
Yeah.
Um, not necessarily going in and connecting, as bad as it sounds, because it can be a good thing to connect with people. But sometimes for me, before I do that, I need that space to be like, all right, is there anything going on that he and I need to work out or talk about before I then go and engage with somebody?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
you
and
also never
Go
know
ahead.
who you're going to be engaging or what they might be carrying as well.
Mm.
And you've just opened on that stage, you've just opened yourself up in a very vulnerable way. Because when I play, I don't hold anything back. It's,
Yeah.
it's all or nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the four of us have that in common.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and
Yeah.
we see that same thing in the life of Yeshua. I mean, how many times did he try to escape the people as much as he loved the people? I mean,
Yeah.
you could see over and
Mhm.
over and over again how it says specifically he was moved by the people because they were hungry, they needed to be taught, they all these things. But he still like kept trying to escape them and go be with the Father because he knew that even the Messiah knew that he had to have that time with the Father in order to
Mhm.
be effective with the people.
Mhm.
And with the more you try to minister to people without that personal time with the Father, the more in danger you are of it puffing you up.
But
Yes.
let's face it, you don't always get those times.
No.
No,
And
you don't.
you know,
You actually never do.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is about this, now that I'm thinking about it, we had no thought process of talking about this tonight, by the way, for anybody that's listening. Yeah, this ain't rehearsed in any way. It seems like to me, more times than not, the person who kind of lives by that verse of you're to be a peculiar people,
Mhm.
you know the one I'm talking about, they've kind of taken that verse to an extreme. That will be the person that comes up to me afterwards,
That's right.
and you can't get rid of them. They're
Mhm.
just like glued into you, and they're asking the most irrelevant thing or making the most irrelevant statement about nothing. And it's
Mhm.
like I'm getting sucked dry out of this thing, and I can't get away from it. Has that ever happened to you guys, or is it just me?
Ooh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
I was going to say to that, for those that are listening, it's important who your inner circle is, because when you talk about going and experiencing having those encounters, it is draining.
Mhm.
It's very draining. Um, for me, the only way to really fill that back up sometimes is by the encouragement. Like, for instance, Dave and I kind of have each other after these things that we'll be able to go in and kind of recharge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we needed
And
that.
we've we've done that for a number of years now since the very first kind of trip.
Oh yeah.
Because you cannot pour out of an empty cup.
yeah.
Mhm.
You have to take the time to get filled back up again. And unfortunately, that comes with the territory of being in the public eye in any form or fashion.
It does. And
Mhm.
I think the Father's really gracious to augment us when we are drained. I think we could probably all say that he's many times just filled us up when we had absolutely nothing left. And but if he does that as a reward for previous time spent with him, not always as like, the longer you go without it, the more like it's like a pressure cooker. Like it's just going to keep bubbling up and bubbling up, and eventually that thing's going to blow, and it's going to be obvious to you and everyone around you.
Mhm.
And just so people know, like, you know, we were talking about this peculiar person that comes up and, you know, asks these really strange questions. To everyone listening, if you don't know who it is, it might be you.
It's great.
I
I
tell
was
you
about
what,
to
man.
say, I want to jump off what you were just saying because there is something about it. I've noticed that the Father moves in a mighty way when we'll do something like, so for you, Mike, it's when after you get done speaking,
Mhm.
we probably talk with a few people. For us, we'll be doing stuff, and then right when we're doing our sound tear down, we love how much everyone wants to help, but there's a point where it's like, all right, stay back.
Yeah.
We got to do some things, and then you're just grab anything and everything and go. But
Yeah.
it's that we realize that after we've done something, I've noticed there's a pattern, and you'll recap. And I can't imagine what your recap must have been like for Israel, right? Just hours. Like you're like, oh wait, oh I forgot about that. Oh yeah, that. In the recap, there's this filling up sometimes that happens because sometimes it's just go, 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 go.
True.
We've been
Yeah.
on things
It's a
where
good
it's
point.
3 sets in a day, and it's I don't think people realize how, if you've never played in a band and played 3 sets in one day, that's even
yeah.
probably small to some people. It can really grind on you, and it's brutal. And you've got to have those quick little moments of, okay, calm down, move forward.
Yeah.
So it's really amazing how God will just show up to fill you up. That's
Yeah.
You know, for me on the Israel trip, I'm on 24/7. Okay. I don't
Mhm.
get any off time. In fact, when I wake up when I wake up, usually wee hours in the morning, my brain starts going, okay, because I've got to arrange things. I got to deal with safety issues, security issues. I want everyone to be able to walk through the land not having to think about anything.
Mhm.
Literally not having to think about, well, where do I buy my tallit? I want to be able to already have that planned out for them. And so my brain's going all the time. And it was right toward the end. I looked at Kathy we had gone back to our room, and I said, I don't know how much more of this I can do. I'm exhausted. I'm totally exhausted. And I mean, I was literally just at the end of myself. And the next day, of course, I got to be on again. And I grabbed my recorder and started walking around talking to the people, and they started to tell me what had happened to them on the tour. And it was like this energizing.
Mhm.
I even,
Yeah.
we spent one night and Daniel knows where where we were at Tamar. And it was the night that we just have testimonies from people. And it was the night before that I'd said this to Kathy. And no,
wow.
actually it wasn't. It was that afternoon. It was like an hour prior to doing this. And we sat there and they started doing these testimonies. And I just went, I looked at Kathy and I said, well, I guess my question's been answered. I can still keep going because I need to, I got to, it was just this energizing. And
Yep.
so this kind of leads us into where we're going. Okay. Let me turn a little corner here. Last week we talked about, or in the last few weeks, you've been given something. Okay. The third question of life, what have I been given? Number 4 is, what will I do with it? But then what we're talking about, even between ourselves as a worship leader, as a speaker, as all these things, now what's going to hold you back from doing with that?
Mhm.
Guys, in with what you have dealt with in your life, was there a time that you went, okay, I know I've got something to give, but
Mm.
Ryan, go.
That's interesting. I think a lot of times what stops us is fear. Fear that
Fear
we
of?
would be. I'm getting there. Fear that we would be inadequate to fulfill that role. Fear that others would perceive us incorrectly.
Mhm.
Fear of failure.
Mhm.
Fear of not being equipped enough. Right. I'm not the best musician, so why am I being called to lead worship? Right.
Mhm.
Um, oh, don't send me. I have a speech problem. Right. Moses.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, surely send somebody else, right?
Mhm.
We have a very good friend. He dropped out of high school basically because he didn't want to attend speech class because he was so afraid of talking in front of people. I think that actually goes for many people that we know.
Mhm.
And of course, now he gives his testimony in front of hundreds and thousands of people. So I was looking this up actually. Like, where do we see? Because when we kind of were discussing what to talk about today, it was brought up, what would stop you from sharing your gift?
Mm.
Right. So I went and I have this old Bible. This was from 1884. And in the back of it, it's a Sunday school teacher's edition. So it gives you like words in alphabetical order. So I went to G and to gifts and started looking at the verses where we see gifts. And I came to Romans chapter 12. It says, "For I say, through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, according as God has dealt to every man a measure of faith. For as we have many members in one body, and all members have not the same office, so we being many are one body in Messiah, and every one members one of another, having then gifts differing according to the grace that is given to us." And then it proceeds to go and let's, prophecy, let us prophesy according to the proportion of faith, or ministry, let us wait on our ministering, or he that teacheth on teaching, so on and so forth. Having then gifts differing according to the grace that is given to us.
Hmm.
And then up here as well, back in verse 3, "For I say, though through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think." So I guess my question is, if God has put something in you, this is for the listener, if God has put a gift in you, are you so high above him that put it in you that you would choose to not share it? For those that might be gifted something and are too afraid, I would challenge you, does that not contain a tinge of selfishness?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Whose life might you affect or change just by the fact that God has put those gifts in you? And it says to not think of yourself more highly than you ought to think, but think soberly, according as God has dealt to every man this measure of faith. So this comes to your faith as well. So, the question sometimes comes up of, how do I exercise my faith? By exercising the gift. Because by exercising your gift, you're showing the one that put it there that you have faith that he will give you all the tools you need. So that's what I have on the subject.
I could walk away from the program tonight and have everything I needed.
Mhm.
What you just
Pretty
said,
much.
Ryan, is some of the wisest words I've ever heard.
Mm.
Thank you.
The
Hey,
height is,
hopefully that
oh,
I hope it helps somebody.
well, guy,
No,
somebody else
absolutely.
add something here. I've got to just sit here and kind of think about this one.
I'm about to say I could jump all over this one, that faith thing, because I know as a band, and even myself, you walk through time and time again, your faith will be tested. And I think that's the big thing here. It's your faith. That's the question is, like, why do you not share it? Your faith. That's where it is. How much faith do you have? And God's going to keep bringing up these situations. Show where your faith is, and then increase it. Find a way to get you to increase it. He'll bring about situations, whatever it is, and he'll get to a point where, because I know where I've been, and there was very little faith. And at the end of that trip, my faith had increased abundantly.
Yeah.
But it wasn't easy. It definitely wasn't easy. But you have more of a love for him, you have more faith for him, and you realize that, okay, the fear of man starts to go away. The fear of failing starts to go away because you start putting your faith in him. Because you gotta walk, you gotta take that first step. You got to actually move forward. You can't just sit back and try to plan out how you're going to use your gift. You just have to step forward. Step forward. Don't be so prideful to think that that you don't need to share the gift that God gave to you to tell others. No, step forward. One step forward, and he'll take care of the rest. One step forward, though.
Yeah.
Daniel?
I hope people can capture, like, there's 2, 3, and 4 witnesses here, like, with this particular answer to this question. Because Ryan, everything you're saying, like, 100%, like, you took the words out of my mouth and then improved them. Just all those things, the fear of inadequacy and the lack of confidence, and Dave, the fear of man, like all those things are the big hitters. And I guess if I added anything, I would say that, sometimes hidden within that selfishness and hidden within that fear is a false humility. And I think that's one of the things we were really trying to hammer when we entered the first question here of who are you? Something we were trying to hammer so heavily at Revive with the young adults there, of just saying, like, you are someone, and you are someone special and unique, and like that's not to be taken lightly. And because the essence of that is acknowledging that God has put something specific in you, and until you can grasp that and do away with the doubts of the enemy and his accusations that you're nothing, then it's going to be very hard to push past the fear of man and to push past the fear of inadequacy. Because just in my own life, I really have gotten to the point in my worship leading that I care what I sound like, but I don't care. Like, I'm up there and I know I'm hitting the wrong notes, and I know that I tried to reach that one on my voice and I missed it totally. I was like 2 or 3 or 4 notes off. Is hit the wrong chord on that one. I got a little lost in the worship in the moment. I don't care. And I want people to hear that, like, I, as a worship leader, leading people in worship, vulnerable, exposed, I don't care what mistakes I make, because it's not about that. Like, I have been freed from the pressure to perform and the pressure to be perfect. Like, my anointing is so much bigger than that. And so, but just to kind of sit alongside that is this false humility where people like to kind of focus on, you have the extreme of the prosperity gospel, like, you are this and you are this and you are this. It's just like it's the fluff of it. But then on the other side, you have the people that like to focus on that one little section from Paul of, like, wretched man that I am, and it's just like there is a middle ground here. Like, we can acknowledge on one hand that in the grand scope of the universe and everything that God has created, we are very, very, very tiny. But we can also acknowledge that he has put something unique in each of us. And again, until we understand the magnitude of what that means, we can't push past the fear of man, because that's what's going to hold you back. Like, just fear of what people are going to think above, Ryan, what you were saying so beautifully, just, how the Father has just put that in you, and like you owe it to him because he bestowed this on you. Yeah, no, really, really, really well put.
Go ahead, Greg.
We go to this word gift, and I was actually teaching on this morning at before the sun came up, and now it's after the sun's going down. But because I was up about 3 o'clock in the morning, called jet lag. Out of this week's Torah portion, which is the life of Sarah Sarah, is the word gifts. And we see this, and I know that there's different words, but one word that I went with this today is translated gifts. It's matane. Yeah, matane. And my Hebrew is not real good, but I can look at the words. And so the spelling of this is a mem, a tav, a nun, and a hey. So this is this word gift. Mem, tav, nun, hey. And if we look at the pictograms, the Paleo Hebrew, the pictograms of the letters, what it is water, covenant, life, and breath. So in every gift that the Father has given us. It is water. We could say living water. It is about the covenant. It is about there's life there and there's breath there. So everything that's needed in our relationship with the Almighty is within that word. So when he gives us, he pours into us, Mim, the life and breath of the covenant. He does that not for us to keep it, but to give it. You know, I was just at the Dead Sea just a few days ago, and it's a wonderful experience. You know, anybody that's ever been there, it's a wonderful experience, and people go out and they, you know, you sit down in the water and you float, and you've got these minerals, and it's good for you, and the minerals in the air help you in your respiratory system, and it's great for your skin and all this, but it's dead. It's dead. There's nothing living there. Why? Because it doesn't have any outflow. All it is an inflow.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can have some wonderful feelings of that which is coming in. But if we don't have something to go out, we're going to end up with death. Even when he gives us life, we end up taking that life and turning it into death when, as Ryan so aptly put it, we act in selfishness of keeping that which the Father gives us unto ourselves.
You know, and it's interesting about that word you're saying, you know, so you have, you know, picture this word that you just said, and it's in a box. And so, you know, you have those things you just said, the water, you have life, you have, you know, the breath. You know, breath and water are two of the main things that any living thing on this earth needs to survive.
Wow.
And so it's like the Father is giving us this box, which is a gift, and contained within the box itself is what is necessary for the gift to keep producing and keep living. And so we don't have to have fear that the gift that he has given us will die or will fall short. Like, contained within the gift itself is that which is needed to produce it and to keep it going and to keep it living and breathing and flowing like this living water we're talking about. Like, it's not up to us to make it everlasting. Like, the everlasting effect of the gift he gives us is on him. Like, he is the one that handles that. We are the ones that are supposed to sustain and provide for and feed this gift.
Wow. David?
About to say, like, there's so much great stuff here because wow, I just see the correlation stuff. The fear, like you were talking about, it's like a seed being planted. You got to have water, you got to have air, you have all these things in order for it to grow. So he's given each and every one of us a seed, something that he's placed inside of us, because he knows that we're going to be able to do that. And the thing that stops us the most, the one thing that keeps our water in, like you so aptly put it with the living water, what keeps it is fear. And it's fear of fill in the blank, whatever it is. I know some people, it's different. Whatever, to whoever's listening, whatever you're fearful about, whatever you, you know you've got something, you know that the Father's given you something, you know it's there, you're not sure how to use it, you're not sure what to do with it. That fear, whatever you think of fear first, whether it be people, whether it be fear that you can't do or a failure, whatever it is, that's the first thing to tackle. That's the first battle. That's the first dam that's in your lake that is blocking the water from flowing out. And that he's literally pointing you to. And then we sit there and pray, because I've done the same thing that you have probably done itself here listening, that you'll be praying about, like, God, why am I not doing anything? Why am I sitting here doing nothing? And then he's already given it to you. He already told you, step one, fight this. This is step one. And then things start falling down because your faith will start to increase. And then the water comes in, the water flows out so fast that he has to keep giving you more water to keep you going and keep you going. So there's so much here that's just, I think I wish I could put this on a thumb drive and just give it to every single person I met and just say, here, this is what you need. Just keep going. Just don't hold back. Just keep going. It's amazing. Y'all are really bringing up some super awesome points that stop everybody.
Mhm.
I think every believer faces this, and especially young people. I know that I've heard, I think, Danny, I'm Ryan, I know that we've all heard these. You have a young person come up to you and they go, I just don't know if God can use me. I don't know if I believe in God. That crisis of faith, right?
Mhm.
It hits everybody. It doesn't matter if you've been doing this all your life. It doesn't matter if you just joined in a year ago that you found God. It hits you. It's nasty. It smacks really hard. And it's all about faith. It's all about Him bringing your faith up to a deeper level that you've never realized before.
Yeah,
So,
David,
yeah.
you brought up a word there, and I've been thinking about this word for a while, and this is a concept that you guys have seen me do this at numerous meetings we've been involved with. The word use.
mm,
You know, usually will stand up in front of a group of people and say, "How many of you want God to use you?" And it's like, yeah. I mean, some people raise their hand because everybody else is, but there are those that are going, yes, yes. And then I'll do that, bomb drop moment and say, don't ever do that again. Don't ever answer that question like that again, because how do you feel when your friends use you? And you
good.
guys have seen that moment. Is there like,
Mhm,
It's heavy. It's a heavy moment.
yeah, it's like,
mhm,
why? How do you feel when somebody uses you? Used. The Father
yeah.
doesn't want to use you. So those who are listening, here's a newsflash. The Father does not want to use you, but He doesn't want to work through you.
Yeah.
And that just takes the pressure off. You take a piece of conduit, a piece of pipe.
Mhm.
Its only job is to allow water to come in this way and leave that way. It has no pressure. When we understand that simple little thing, it's like a shofar, which you guys have heard me talk about, so many times that you can do it in my own voice.
Mhm,
Is the breath. The very
Yeah.
purpose of a shofar is to allow breath to flow through. And that's what the Father desires. So there's no pressure when you get up to
mhm.
sing. Yeah, Daniel, hey, you hit a bad note. I hit a bad word. Not a bad word, but a bad word. I mean, I I don't communicate it well.
Mhm,
Okay, whatever. But you have perfect breath flowing through an imperfect vessel to bring forth a perfect message.
mhm,
I'll share a funny story here. Early on in our days of playing together as a band, we were invited to come down to Orlando for I believe it was Shavuot, and we were there and we were going to play that evening, and we were going to play a song. I forget who the original person that wrote it is, but it's called "Salt and Light." Great
Lauren
song.
Daigle.
Lauren Daigle, that's right.
Mhm.
Mhm,
Brittany sings that song beautifully.
mhm,
Um, so we got to that particular part of the evening, and we began to play that song, and one of us messed up somewhere, and then it threw Brittany off, and so she didn't know, where she was in the song, and so she stopped singing. It was this very awkward pause for us on stage, and we're thinking, "Oh no, this is
Oh, the
not
worst
good
has
at all.
happened.
The worst has happened," right? I mean, you could almost hear a pin drop, but then all of a sudden, you felt like the spirit fill the room,
Hmm.
because what happened is he used that moment. People thought that in that particular moment that Brittany had stopped singing because the song had choked her up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When I tell you that from that song, we went on for another, I think it was 3 hours of just raw worship.
Yeah.
And the Lord used what was perceived on stage as a
Mhm.
mistake as the catalyst. So, there again, don't be afraid. Like you said, Daniel,
Mhm. It's
go
just
and you know,
it's
the,
just going
the,
with the flow too, like the Father is gonna I think he really enjoys finding how many different ways he can affect people and like touch their lives and touch their hearts,
Yes.
because you can't put it in a box. You shouldn't try to put it in a box. And the more we think that it's the perfect song and like the perfectly sung song, the perfectly performed song that affects people, like no, it's the spirit behind it. Because I had something similar happen at our group maybe a couple months ago, where got through the first song okay, got through the second song okay, the third song, like my voice, it was like I could watch it leaving me, and I was like, hey, see you later. I mean, I could use you right now, but I mean, I understand if you got to go. So my voice was gone, and I mean, I got maybe halfway through the song, and I
Yeah.
started telling people, I was like, guys, my voice is gone, I cannot sing. But as something, as a what you guys do, I'm sure, and Dad and me, like you're doing something, you're speaking, you're playing, but you're also thinking at the same time.
Yeah.
Like you're always 2 steps ahead of yourself. So I'm playing, but I'm like, okay, I'm singing it, and at the same time I'm praying, Father, what do you want this moment to look like? Because again, I'm not really worried at that point. I know it's going to be fine. I know that I'm in a group full of people who love the Father and love to worship him. And so just asking him, like, what do you want from this moment? And I told everyone, like, guys, my voice is gone. And I said, but you don't need me to worship. Like, you guys know this song, and the Father wants you to take this moment and you to enter into worship that is not led by me. And so, I was kind of like shouting like where we were going next. But I mean, they took that thing by the reins and they snapped them and they were off. Like I heard the voices rise and I heard the spirits rise along with it.
Yeah.
And so just acknowledging, like, had I been worried in that moment about what I sounded like and like what it was going to end, we wouldn't have had in our group that beautiful moment where they entered in and they were leading the worship.
Yeah.
If you would have succumbed to the fleshly desire to just, well, done, stop all this, right? Just
Mhm.
the urge to just, well, that's it, right? That urge is so strong,
Mhm.
just like, it's this, nah, we're done. This is not
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
You had to actually die to yourself at that moment and go, all right, God, what's
Yeah.
up? Because
Yeah.
everything's been there. What do I
You
do now? And in that moment, that beauty just shows up
Mhm.
immediately. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, faith is figuring out that as Brad Scott of blessed memory would
Mm.
always say, that God is smarter than us. And so faith is taking things. We had on our tour, we said our theme word is Gumby, be flexible, because you have to be a little flexible on a tour. And with that comes faith, that the Father has things that are going on that we don't know about. Let me give you an example, and I'll be quiet here in the last few minutes we have. We were scheduled to go to the Temple Mount, or the Temple Institute. And so this is a place everybody likes to go. We were all looking forward to going to the Temple Institute. I know, Daniel, you've been there. David, you've probably been to the Temple Institute. Amazing place about what's going on in Israel regarding the next temple. We get there at 10 o'clock. We have our tickets purchased. We got our appointment. We got our confirmation, everything. 10 o'clock, and nobody's there to open the door. And we're standing there. Whenever the burnt house is closed. And I'm like, well, what's going on? Something's happened. They just decided to close, and nobody told us. Hanok's on the phone trying to call, getting recordings. And about 10:15, it's like, okay, guys, it's not going to open. Here's the instructions. Have some lunch, do this, meet us in front of Shorashim at a certain time. And they scattered. The cats scattered very fast on a tour. It's like meow, and they're gone. And so I walk up towards Shorashim. My phone rings. It's Hanok. He says, she's here. I went, what? They just opened. Well, we had been gone like 2 minutes. They're all gone. We're not getting them back. And so I said, it doesn't matter. They've scattered. We can't get them. So we'll just schedule another time if we can. But here's this thing that everybody was looking forward to. And we walked away. And then the lady came up. She said to me later on, as she apologized, she said, that's never happened. She said, I'm so sorry. It's never happened before. I've done this job. I've never been late. I'm so sorry. And I said, it's okay. Well, we walked off, ended up with a few people over Daniel next to the Cardo Pizza place, and we're sitting there having a piece of having some pastries, and one of the young ladies that was part of our tour sat down, and my wife Kathy, we were just talking, and Kathy said, "Well, why don't you tell him about this certain teaching is on the 12 tribes?" And I started to talk about a couple of different things, and I did not realize it, but what I was saying was exactly what needed to be ministered to this young lady. She texted me later. We had a conversation later. She said, things I've been dealing with all my life were answered in those few moments.
Wow.
I actually said this to the group later. I told the group what had happened. And I said, I just want to ask you guys, would anybody have gone back if we could and have actually been able to go into the Temple Institute, but missed that appointment to minister to this young lady? And every one of them went, no, of course not. Because it wasn't about them. This is one of the most amazing tours, because out of all the people that were there, not a single person made it about them.
Amen.
And when we don't make life about us, and Ryan, I wrote this down about the selfishness. Selfishness is when we make life about us, which is, by the way, what Sodom and Gomorrah did. That didn't turn out too good. But when we make it about him, we end up being like Abraham. So which one do we want to be? Which one do we want to be like? Abraham or Sodom and Gomorrah? Your thoughts?
That's true. I was going to add, looking at that word of gifting, of gifts, I kind of saw a picture in the story of that word there that may be a little bit different. And for somebody listening that maybe you don't know what your gift is, or it's not been unlocked yet. It's what were the things again? It was water,
Yeah.
covenant,
Water, covenant,
Water,
breath,
covenant,
and breath.
life and breath.
life and breath. If you haven't entered into a relationship with Messiah yet and been baptized, through going through that water as a living sacrifice, making a covenant with the Son of the Most High, with the Almighty, you'll gain new life and be the breath of God.
So what do we see? We see that Tav, by the way, is the mark. Okay, in ancient Paleo Hebrew, it would have been like a cross. So what do we see in that word? We see
Messiah.
We see the Messiah and him giving his life for us.
That's
we
right.
See the waters of the mikvah, the baptism. We see his life flowing through us, and then the infilling of the Holy Spirit as he flows his breath through us.
That's right. And that's really what that last part, being the breath of God, just like the shofar, being that conduit so that call can reach the world.
By the way, I said I wouldn't say anything else, but you know how that goes. By the way, the word gift that I'm using right there is not, I didn't look for it in the servant going forth for a bride for Isaac. Where I found the gift or where I found the word and taught about it is the sons of Abraham's concubines, those that were products of after Sarah died, Abraham remarried and had sons, and he gave gifts unto them. Those that would not be part of the covenant would have an opportunity in what they were given to be part of the covenant.
That's good.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. You have to think about that one. Parting words, guys?
Just remember, life is not about us, it's about him. And everything that he has given you or gifted to you, it is a gift to you. Like, he loves you and he has given you that. He hasn't given it to someone else, he gave it to you. And he wants to nourish it and watch it grow and show you his love through it. But you can't contain it. You can't, if you try to squash it or keep it to yourself, it's going to die. And so, just read through the Gospels and see like how much Yeshua loved people and how much he gave to them time after time. And he was at the end of his ropes and he was exhausted at times in his human body, but he just gave because he knew that his life was much, much bigger than him. And we are called to be like Messiah. And so just acknowledging that each and every person that we encounter is a person that is in need of receiving from the Father. And he may have you as the person to flow his love into their lives. And so just remember, it's about him.
Yeah.
It's about his kingdom.
That's right.
We've talked about this whole lake and river thing about how the God is giving you gifts, and it's like that analogy. I would like to also propose another analogy that if you've ever been in a river, and we've got quite a few rivers where we are here, when the water's really let out, it can take you downstream and just take you and rip you from you have no place holding and foot holding. And when you come into the covenant that is with him and through Messiah, you're able to come into covenant. You might find yourself in that water and God's trying to push you and go, and you'll try to fight that water and just stand there obstinate saying, no, I won't do this because it looks scary, or, well, it looks like it's not going to be easy and fun. I don't want to do it. You just got to let go. And I know that I've gone through it. I've seen others gone through it. I think every single one of us has gone through that moment of just, all right, God, you're in control of this thing. I'm just going to go with this. And you'll be blown away how all those scary things you thought you were going to encounter, they're really not so scary at all. Just trust him. Have faith.
Yeah. Amen.
Sounds good. Ryan?
That's all I got. That's all, folks.
I mean, he basically summed up the whole program in like 5
Yeah.
minutes. I mean, we can't really expect much more from him.
No. It's like when you got a thought like that, what else you got to say there?
Yeah.
Well, guys, I'm having a very difficult time holding back the yawns. There comes a point in which it's like, oh, I can't hold that thing back any longer. So I think it's about time for a good nap, and
Yep.
appreciate you guys.
Yes.
I've been bragging on you to everybody I know. You
Appreciate
guys
it,
are
Mike.
amazing, and I sure do appreciate all that you're doing to make this program a success. And for everyone who's listening, we could have a good conversation between the four of us, yes, but our conversation is really about you. And pray that we've been able
Amen.
to pour something else into your life and to reveal to you the verse that says that the Father has plans for you, plans for good and not for evil, to give you purpose and a hope. And when you live your life unto others and not to yourself, you're living life on purpose. See you next week.
See you next week.
See ya.
God of the universe, maker